The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the UMass 5 College Credit Union, dedicated to creating access to financial well-being for local people, businesses, and communities. Insured by NCUA, umass5.coop.
Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte. Later in the show, we'll pay tribute to one of Great Barrington's own who paved the way for King, Marshall, the Pullman Porters, and many others seeking equality and equity in this nation when we speak with the folks who've come together to create a new statue of W.E.B. Du Bois.
But first, whirlwind and whiplash in D.C. as another round of cuts and condemnation goes through.
Well, you finally did it. You killed Big Bird. Mr. Rogers is rolling over in his grave. Ira Glass and Ira Flato are irate, and Terry Gross thinks this is vulgar. Time for our weekly check-in with U.S. Congressman from the 2nd Congressional District of Massachusetts and the ranking member of the Rules Committee, Congressman Jim McGovern. Our weekly chat, McGoverning with McGovern. Congress has defunded the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, first in the budget, and now clawing back these previously allocated funds for the next 2 years in the so-called rescission package that passed the Senate very early this morning. It's the first time in decades that a rescission package like this has been approved by the Senate. Last time was in '99 under President Clinton. It was a 51-48 vote, mostly along party lines. However, GOP Senators Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins did defect. Mitch McConnell from Kentucky ultimately voted yes. One last gasp of hope for this rescission package has to do with you, Congressman. The House needs to reconvene the Rules Committee, where you're the ranking member, to approve another rule on the floor and then send that $9 billion package to Trump's desk. But the deadline is looming for this on Friday, or it will be dead in the water, with Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries doing an 8-hour-long so-called magic minute speech 2 weeks ago. Is there a possibility left yet in your committee, Congressman, the Rules Committee, that this doesn't go through, or is that just false hope for all of us who work in public media?
Well, we're going to try to push back, but in the Rules Committee, it's 9 Republicans and 4 Democrats. So it's a tough thing to be able to overturn. But we're going to try, and we're going to bring this fight to the floor later today. By the way, the defunding is not just about Big Bird and Mr. Rogers and all that stuff. I mean, a lot of rural communities rely on this funding to get information and news. You know, I'm surprised that Mitch McConnell, who's not running again, didn't have the fortitude and the guts to stand up and say that these cuts to public broadcasting are going to hurt my own constituents. But you know, there's not a lot of profiles and courage on the Republican side, and but we're going to fight. We're going to fight back.
I guess one of the more positive things about it is during that vote-a-rama, there was protection for the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, or PEPFAR, that I think is ultimately what made some of these Republicans who would have otherwise potentially voted no, vote yes. This is part of the legacy of George W. Bush, so Republicans probably wanted to support that more. And it does really do good work in AIDS relief.
It does do good work, but understand this. Just because it was protected in the bill doesn't mean that it will move forward. I mean, as we speak, I mean, the Trump administration has frozen a lot of the PEPFAR monies. They have frozen monies for school feeding programs around the world. They've frozen monies, for humanitarian relief efforts around the world. They've done that unilaterally and I believe illegally, but people are dying already before Congress votes for this rescission package because this administration has been putting a freeze on funding. We're in a really precarious situation, and I think the world community at large, I think, is shocked that the United States is kind of turning its back on the most vulnerable. That's what we're known for. We're there to help refugees. We're there to help combat diseases and illnesses like HIV/AIDS. We're there to help feed hungry people, and now we're no longer there, and it's really quite sad.
Is there a hope that this could pass in some sort of supplemental budget, either, to make sure that the PEPFAR money is there, other foreign aid money, and also the Corporation for Public Broadcasting? As I mentioned, it's sort of not unprecedented, but certainly decades ago that a rescission package like this has passed through Congress. It does sort of cede the power of the purse that the legislative branch is supposed to have to the executive branch. Is there any movement in a bipartisan way to try to steer it back to what constitutionally is supposed to be your bailiwick?
There is a possibility, but that requires a little bit of courage on the Republican side. Again, understand what's happening here. This administration, even before this rescission package, has been unilaterally freezing funding for a lot of really important programs. I'm the author of the McGovern-Dole school feeding program. Congress authorized money. They appropriated money. The president is supposed to spend it. He has frozen a number of these programs. And so a number of school feeding programs, and the money's there all around the world, and some of the poorest countries in the world have stopped because Trump has, again, I think illegally, used his power to freeze that money so that these programs aren't being funded. So even if the rescission package didn't pass, he is behaving in a way that, quite frankly, I think goes against the Constitution. I think that is illegal and that diminishes the role of Congress. Even if we win some of these fights, that doesn't mean the fight is over.
Speaking with U.S. Congressman Jim McGovern, McGoverning with McGovern, another big story this week that I wasn't expecting necessarily to be a big story, but that you have weighed in on as well, is the Epstein files. The Department of Justice has allegedly a client list of Jeffrey Epstein. Pam Bondi has waffled on what is going to be happening, the Attorney General, with this list. Do you believe there is a list? Do you believe that this is a cover-up? Do you believe that Trump is complicit in this? Do you believe Trump is on this list? And do you believe that there are other top Democrats, maybe one who we've even mentioned in this conversation, is also potentially on this list? And will we, the public, ever see this Jeffrey Epstein client list?
Well, look, Trump and his supporters for years have trafficked in conspiracy theories. I mean, and they've made this big deal about Jeffrey Epstein's supposed list. I have no idea whether such a list exists. From all the reporting and from people who have knowledge of what's happening, I'm told no. But nonetheless, they've created this kind of controversy. I mean, some of these conspiracies theories that they've put forward have kind of gone full circle, and now it's coming back to bite them in the ass. And amongst his base, people want transparency, and I think they should have transparency. One of two things is true. One, either there's a list or there's some very sensitive and damaging information that may even implicate Donald Trump, or two, there's nothing more there than we already know. But either way, I mean, there's no reason why the Attorney General shouldn't release the information. I find it particularly interesting that the president is making such a fight over this. I mean, I don't get it. I mean, unless he thinks there's something in there that might be damaging to him. But nonetheless, he created this controversy. He created this conspiracy, and his base is demanding that it be released. And I'm happy to accommodate them. And so I've, introduced amendments in the Rules Committee. We've done procedural measures on the floor. I'm going to be working with Republican Congressman Tom Massey of Kentucky and Ro Khanna of California, and we're going to be pushing a discharge petition if we can't get a vote on this in the next day or two to try to, again, force the Justice Department to come clean. Obviously, you need to protect the names of the victims, and you have to be very sensitive about that. But there's no reason why not to declassify everything else. And so we're going to continue to push for that.
The other big issue in the House this week is having to do with crypto and the so-called Genius Act. Now, I want to fully admit I have no understanding of how cryptocurrency works, the blockchain.
You and everybody else.
I know. Yeah. And the Trump family has gotten into the crypto game, and now it seemed like Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, was confident that he had struck a deal with some conservative holdouts to move this trio of cryptocurrency bills through that chamber, but that seems not to have happened. It's an impasse that the House rules were open for 9 hours to try to cut a late night deal again earlier this week. Tell us what you know about these crypto bills that are making their way through the House, the Genius Act, and what people should expect if these are to pass in the way that the president hopes they will.
Yeah, well, there were multiple reasons why Republicans kind of held up the process. I mean, some of it is they don't think some of these crypto bills go far enough. Some of it is they think they go too far. Some of it is, the lack of transparency on the Epstein case. It's a whole bunch of stuff. The bottom line is they, brought the House of Representatives to a halt, and we've been sitting here for 2 days doing nothing because they're fighting with each other. And while I take joy in watching them fight with each other because it's ridiculous, I'm also concerned that important work that needs to be done, like passing appropriations bills, is not happening. I mean, one of these crypto bills, the Genius bill, it says in it that, that you can't call your crypto company, USA or US, because that implies that it's somehow a US government kind of sanctioned effort that is backed by the US government. It's interesting that in that bill, there's an exemption for USD, which we know is US dollar. And the reason why is because Trump has a company, or his kids have a company, USD1. And so the question is why, if you're concerned that people will think that some of these crypto companies are backed by the government, Why would you exempt USD when everybody knows USD is US dollar and that's recognized all around the world?
Hmm.
The reason why is that's the name of one of the Trump family's companies. This is corrupt. I mean, it reeks of corruption. And yeah, this is a complicated issue. It deserves, quite frankly, a more thoughtful process, as we move forward on how to regulate it. But it just, they're out in the open and they're very blatant about protecting anything that helps Trump make money. He's making so much money off his presidency. I mean, he's hosting dinners at Mar-a-Lago. I mean, he's getting planes from foreign countries. I mean, he makes Richard Nixon look like Ralph Nader. I mean, this is really beyond the pale, and this is just another example.
Now to some listener questions. Becky George in Greenfield says, I hear Trump ranting all the time about the billions pouring in from tariffs. Where does that kind of income go in the U.S., and who decides how it is allocated?
First of all, the tariffs are not bringing in billions of dollars. Consumers are paying more, and people are beginning to see the price of things are beginning to go up. Money that comes into the government, comes into the Treasury, goes to the Treasury, and it gets divvied up by the executive branch. But the bottom line is the thing about these tariffs, what people need to understand is they're not benefiting the United States. We are paying more for everything. I mean, I have communities in my district, towns in my district that wanted to go ahead, and build a fire station or build a new city hall or whatever. And now putting that on hold because they're afraid that the prices for the materials needed to build are going to go up, and they haven't budgeted for that. And we're seeing that all over the place. Trump thinks that if he can bully people enough, that they'll just fall into place. And the reality is countries around the world are saying, like, we don't want to be bullied. We want to be a partner. We want to work with you. If there are trade inequities, let's talk about them. But threatening us all the time is not the way to proceed. In fact, it's going to force us to look to other markets for our goods and services. And you're going to lose the United States as a result of that.
And just to be clear, if so-called billions do pour in because of these, we don't really know what would happen with that money anyway.
Yeah, we don't.
Another listener question from Greenfield, from Carl Meyer, saying, accepting the bulk of critical U.S. Supreme Court decisions of late have sided with a president who is intent on ruling through, quote, executive orders that fly in the face of and run counter to a Constitution and the Bill of Rights adopted to protect women, due process, free speech, birthright, citizenship, the press, and habeas corpus. He wants to know, would a reading of the Bill of Rights on the steps of the U.S. Supreme Court by 48 committed U.S. senators and 213 U.S. Congress members be an appropriate action in defense of constitutional democracy at this time?
It sounds like a good idea to me. I'll talk to my friend Jamie Raskin, who's the expert on everything about the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and to see whether or not something like that makes sense. But look, I mean, elections matter, and who you appoint to the Supreme Court matters. I'm hoping we're all learning that lesson loud and clear right now, because we have elections coming up, and people need to understand that with the Supreme Court, when they make decisions, they are there. I mean, and we have to abide by them, as awful as some of these decisions are. But I do think that there's a big gulf between what many of us believe the Constitution says and means, and what some of these judges believe the Constitution says or means. And but this is a very, very challenging time. That's why we need a more progressive Congress to counterbalance some of these terrible judgments coming out of the Supreme Court.
Last listener question from Lynn Goldman in Great Barrington says, I was listening to WAMC this morning because I live in Great Barrington, another public radio station that just lost its funding today. Big shout out to WAMC. I tuned in to see what they have to say and heard an interview with Representative McGovern where he was asked about Senator Elizabeth Warren coming out, supporting Ed Markey's reelection for the Senate in 2026. McGovern agreed with her, as you did on our show last week, that you're supporting him. We had Senator Markey on our show last week and talked to him a little bit about this. Now, I know he was just being polite, Lynn goes on to say, but honestly, Senator Markey is 78 years old. The country is going through the most serious and disturbing time, and the voters are screaming for the Democratic Party to do more. Letting Senator Markey run again and supporting him in that is so much like Joe Biden's disastrous decision to run again. Representative McGovern asked the interviewer the rhetorical question, if it's not Ed Markey, who is it going to be? A Republican? She says, what a load of bleep. I'd support Representative McGovern in a run for Senate, but only if he promised to be a one-term senator. We need new, young, progressive people like Zohran Mamdani and AOC to take over the Democratic Party while we still have a democracy. Please discuss this with Congressman McGovern.
So I guess my only critique of that would be that I don't agree that age necessarily is a disqualifier. In many cases, it is. I think it should have been a disqualifier for Joe Biden because I don't think he was up to it. I think it was clear to everybody he wasn't up to it. But there are people, I think Bernie Sanders is, still a powerful voice in the United States Senate. I'm glad he's there. I don't want him to leave, quite frankly. If you don't think Senator Markey is up to the job, or you don't think he's fighting hard enough, well, then you can make your decision on how you're going to vote based on that. But the idea that we come up with these arbitrary lines in the sand, when you reach this age, you're no longer useful to us. Let's come up with arbitrary term limits for people. Some people who are in their 30s shouldn't be in Congress, and we should move to try to get them out of Congress. But I mean, politics, it's about issues. It's about the future of this country. And again, I mean, people can make their own decisions about whether people are up to it or not. I think Ed Markey is. I mean, he's at every meeting I'm at. He's out fighting hard. If there's somebody better out there, they should run if they want to.
That somebody's not you, though,
but I think,
or is it?
No, yeah. I mean, I still have a marriage. I don't want that to be dissolved if I decide to run for Senate. But the other reason why I wouldn't run is because I want to win the House back. And if I win the House back, I can be chairman of the Rules Committee again. And I'm in a position to actually get more done versus being a freshman senator, quite frankly, when I'm the lowest person on the ladder and have very little influence. So there's also a case to be made, especially in the Senate, that seniority can be helpful. You can be chairs of committees. You can do more. You can influence more. So I hear what you're saying. But I promote. I'm excited about AOC, and I'm really excited about Mamdani being the next mayor of New York City, and I think that's all wonderful. We ought to cheer them on and we ought to support them. But we ought not to write people off simply based on age. We all age differently, and Joe Biden didn't age as gracefully as I think he would have hoped, and quite frankly was not up for another term as president. Yeah, in that case, age was a factor. But I mean, there are people who I think are doing incredible work, who are fighting as hard as anybody, of all ages here. And so let's focus in on substance, rather than things solely like age or how many years you've been in service or whatever. I mean, this is serious business, and we have to focus on what matters in our lives and for our country. That doesn't mean we shouldn't be pushing a new and younger people to run. I'm all for that, and people, I want to encourage that. And again, I'm one of the AOC's biggest promoters here in the House of Representatives. I'll continue to be.
Last question, Congressman. What's giving you hope this week?
This has been a crazy week where the last few weeks have been crazy here, and we've been working literally round the clock, not accomplishing a lot, but fighting back some of these really terrible ideas and policies that Republicans have been putting forward. Behind the scenes, we have a tremendous staff up here that don't get paid a lot, but work awfully hard for the American people. I'm inspired by these mostly young people who are up here trying to make a difference, trying to fight for a better country. And sometimes we don't always acknowledge them, but they should be acknowledged. And people need to know and should feel some comfort in the fact there's some really good young women and men up here who are doing the work of the people. I look at them and I continue to be inspired and continue to be hopeful and proud to work with them.
Well, I'm glad you're hopeful. I'm going to binge watch Mr. Rogers today and lament the loss of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
We're going to fight for Mr. Rogers. We're going to fight for all the wonderful programming that is, quite frankly, now in jeopardy because of. I don't know what he has against public broadcasting. Yeah. I don't really get it.
Right, and Jeopardy is not in jeopardy, which is the weirdest thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get it. But anyway, but we're going to fight and try to do as much damage control as we can in the next year and a half. But then we have to win. Anyway. Well, it's great to talk to you.
Thanks for being there for our listeners and for the show. If you got a question for the Congressman, you can always send it our way, thefab413@nepm.org, and I'll ask on your behalf. Thanks as always, Congressman.
All the best.
It's
Thanks.
Such a good feeling to know you're alive.
Aww.
It's such a happy feeling. You're
Knowing inside, and when you wake up, ready to say, I think I'll make a snappy new day.
It's such a good.
Now to pay tribute to one of the architects of the NAACP and whose contribution to modern American sociology cannot be understated as we head to Great Barrington to get a sneak peek at the new W.E.B. Du Bois sculpture outside the Mason Library.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
Talk about I
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Window World of Western Mass, a local family-owned and operated complete exterior remodeling business offering windows, siding, gutters, and more. windowworldofwesternma.com.
I don't know if we have to be quiet because we are in a
No, we're in the basement. Nobody cares.
I
I was going to say the children's room is right over there. They're not quiet. They're never quiet.
But we are in the Mason Public Library in Great Barrington, where on the road in here you see a beautiful sign as you enter Great Barrington saying, birthplace of W.E.B. Du Bois. And that is part of why we're here at the Mason Library today. What's your name?
Julie Michaels. I'm co-chair of the W.E.B. Du Bois Sculpture Project.
I love this idea of this sculpture, and it reminds me of what happened 20-some-odd years ago in Florence, Massachusetts, where they decided they wanted to create a statue that would honor the legacy of Sojourner Truth in that community. And then what has grown around this symbol in that village of Florence, Massachusetts, has added to the legacy of what Sojourner Truth stood for. W.E.B. Du Bois, in my opinion, is even more famous than Sojourner Truth. At least people probably learned about him in school.
Actually, the thing is that people did not learn about him in school. We have talked to young black men who grew up in Great Barrington and never knew. I think there was a time when no one knew about Du Bois. In the last 10 years, he has been restored, and people are looking much more at his intellectual heritage. He was really the founder of the civil rights movement, and he is a son of Great Barrington. Not only that, Great Barrington knew his talent, knew his skill, and they paid for his education. So this sculpture is not only saluting the man, it's saluting the community that educated him, and it's saluting what he became in this country. We could have just put a statue of Du Bois up and said that's enough, but we wanted really to create a community space in front of the library where our community could gather and sit him on a bench so that young children could come and sit with him, so people from the community could sit with him, could ask, who is he? And then they could come into this library, which has a vast collection of his work, and learn more about him. So it was a larger and a bigger picture. Going down this road, we have learned that he is just a piece of what Black history is in the Berkshires. And one of our goals is to educate this community on the very long and very important history of Black people in the Berkshires. It's not just fancy estates, it's not just Tanglewood, it's not just Jacob's Pillow. There's a long history of Black history in the Berkshires, and that's what we're going to share.
This Saturday is the unveiling of the W.E.B. Du Bois sculpture here at the Mason Public Library in Great Barrington. Julie, this was a partnership with lots of different people to bring this reality to life, and some of those people are joining us right now. So phase one is this idea that this is going to create a statue and bring his legacy to greater prominence, and then what's phase two?
Phase two is meeting Ari Zorn, who is my co-chair, and we decided to work together and to build a community of people who were interested in this. And as we went on, more people joined. We put together a board, a very diverse board of local people. And I have to tell you, Ari and I never raised a penny in our lives. And we looked at each other and said, oh my God, what have we done? And we have done it.
Ari's with us right now. Ari, talk about your involvement.
I remember when Julie came to me, I met her at a coffee shop, and she just mumbled the idea of the project, and I'd already said yes in my mind, but didn't tell her. Yes, it was a hell yeah. How could I not be involved in something so historic? I've done a lot in this community. It's all about community, and I was actually feeling like, what is next? And this is what is next. I look around and I see a world, and I see us all in a place where we're all fractured and everything is just broken, from religion to race, to all these things that keep repeating themselves. And I wanted to see something to bring the community together, and that's what this represents to me. And I see this statue, as Julie stated, going back to the educational piece. I went to Brookline High, I went to Driscoll School, and they glanced over W.E.B. Du Bois. I feel like we're rewriting history, retelling the stories, righting some of the wrongs, the stuff that has been excluded. Not in just Black people, but this is about Black people, and a lot of people, from women to Asians to this and that. And I see that statue as the gateway to telling the story again, and it's a gift. I mean, when we have this unveiling, it's like, here you go. This is for everybody. And the way we did it with idea jams, from 3 Reset and, our organization Blackshares, I think we knocked it out of the park. I am honored. I've been containing myself, my excitement about waking up and crying. Because it's history, it's huge, it's unprecedented, and we did it.
I'm assuming that the idea for the actual concept of the sculpture came through one of the jams?
No.
So in that case, I have a question about making it abstract versus making it a true representation of W.E.B. Du Bois.
Which it is. It looks like W.E.B. Du Bois.
In this process, though, we had started Blackshares. Right here's the president, I'm vice president. What's your title? Executive director is John Lewis. And
Not the John Lewis that you might have heard of before, but almost as cool.
But he's just as big in stature and presence.
Still making good trouble over here. And your president is?
Dubois Thomas.
Wait a minute, Dubois? Does that escalate you in the minds of this committee? You're doing a Du Bois statue, but your name is Dubois?
I'm sure, but it's mostly resulted in confusion in terms of pronunciation of our respective names.
Were you named after W.E.B. Du Bois?
I was named after W.E.B. Du Bois.
But they decided to pronounce it Dubois, which a lot of people still do, even for
actually, my father is Haitian, so I was named after him, but we were going to pronounce it the way my people would have pronounced it.
That's really cool.
Actually, it was background is Haitian.
So
we chose to change the name to a more Americanized.
I getcha.
In this process of meeting these two incredible people and the work that we have done with Blackshares, I had to bring this guy in. He's incredible.
Talk about him in front of him, about how great he is and why.
I give him props all the time. I don't even think he realizes how good he is. He's an amazing speaker. He's an even-keeled, level-headed individual who is highly intelligent, right? And he's passionate. I just hit him. I met certain people, and you just connected. He's one of them. I had to have him involved because I knew he can do all the stuff that I couldn't do. So if someone gives me a task, here you go, Dubois.
For those who don't know about Blackshares, John Lewis, the executive director, tell us what it is and what you do when you're not creating these incredible sculptures in front of the library in Great Barrington.
The Blackshares is a platform for Black community and economic development and growth. One of our main programs is our leadership development program, and I think that's why we really connected with the W.B. Du Bois Sculpture Project in terms of that we run a 15-week accelerator for BIPOC individuals who are doing business, community-based projects, or workforce development. Our participation and in terms of the Blackshares is that we're also looking at how can we, as Julie discussed, really talk about the contributions of Black folks here, and we're looking at it from also an opportunity for tourism and Black tourism to come here, because we think, the Berkshires is a great place to work, live, and play. Our engagement with the statue was really based on what does the community want to see and how does the Black community want to connect into the W.E.B. Du Bois, not just for now, but for the future. That's what we talked about education. There was some, poetry done and some writing done, and we're still going to be exploring our connection to the statue beyond, because it's about the work, right? It's about equity, inclusion, and diversity, and how can we create a more just society, and W.E.B. Du Bois was about that. So really connecting our cohorts who've graduated. I think this is our 3rd year. We've been successful at our 3rd year graduation. We just did it in June 26th. And now what does it look like beyond? I think for us beyond is using this opportunity to be a catalyst for continuous change in the area and really exploring maybe new programs, youth development programs, and things of that nature that are going to be coming out of this moving forward.
But one thing that Dubois and John Lewis did is we ran an idea jam. So basically you invited the community. So they all had a say in what this meant to them. So this was all inclusive in every way possible. But that was these guys and Blackshares and 3 Reset doing that work. So I feel like we've done this where there's no angle where someone can come at us within this community.
You'd be surprised.
So as Julie said, the initial concept was for a plaza redesign and a kind of revitalization of the plaza.
We're looking at the designs right now.
The existing steps of the library were actually condemned for at least 5 to 6 years or so. They were the original marble steps that, due to some settling issues, had crumbled and deteriorated, and the library was not able to use its front steps.
The front was closed off. The front of the library was closed off. This was the only green space on the main street of town. This idea for a statue of Du Bois had been percolating, and we thought, this is where it belongs, in front of the library. We don't want it on a corner where nobody's going to see him. And then we said, how do we create not only a statue, but a space for the community? We needed places for people to sit, for children to read books, to have a gathering space. You could have poetry readings there. You could have performances there. And when you ask the question of why it was not abstract, why it was concrete, this is a small community. I don't want to put a statue that is, where people have to sit there and say, well, what does it mean?
That'll be on next week's show when we're at the Wildwood Cemetery in Amherst.
Right. So what this one is we want to show you the man, but we also wanted to create an art piece. We had a competition. We put together a panel. We went out looking for black sculptors. We had 17 applicants. We picked 3. They did maquettes. We brought them to the community here and in Pittsfield. The black population is really in Pittsfield now. We didn't want to just ask the people in Great Barrington. We put them out. We said, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? We didn't really say vote on it. We said, what do you think? And all of them agreed with us, which was Richard Blake, highly accomplished, prize-winning black sculptor. We selected him. He's done a brilliant job.
More with Du Bois Thomas, Julie Michaels, Ari Zorn, and John Lewis about the new W.E.B. Du Bois statue that'll be unveiled in Great Barrington on Saturday coming up.
As we explore more of the journey they had with the community as they sought to build this new communal space.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Northeast Solar, offering solar options, energy security, and solutions for the local community. Learn more at northeast-solar.com.
Now let me explain something to you. There are 13 statues of Frederick Douglass in New England. 13. There are no statues of W.E.B. Du Bois.
Mm-hmm.
And
until Saturday.
So we wanted the man. We didn't want a symbol. And we wanted the man sitting on a bench. That was a request to the sculptors. We don't want him standing up, lording over people. We want people to come and sit by him. We want people to say, who is he? We want people to go into the museum. We want people to pick up a brochure that says, take this African American heritage trail throughout the Berkshires. What's in the Berkshires? Well, Mumbet, Elizabeth Freeman, who was the woman who sued for her freedom, and which is why Massachusetts declared its slaves free. New York State didn't do it. Connecticut didn't do it. There was a large black community in the Berkshires. There were 185 black residents of Great Barrington when Du Bois lived here. There were residents in Sheffield, a farming town. You never think. There was a whole community of black people. They were all over because they came here for their freedom, and nobody knows that. And that's an amazing thing. And then you go and you say, who fought in the Civil War? Well, guess what? The Glory Brigade, the Fabulous 54th, 80 of those men came from Berkshire County, and nobody knows him.
I didn't even know Denzel was from here.
Hey, come on now, buck up, boys. Hey, buck up now, come on. See, someday they're gonna let the 54th get into it, see?
That was a good joke.
Thank you.
Don't encourage it.
Yeah.
Once again, that statue and the hand is out. It's saying, come sit with me. I will teach you. Welcoming to everybody. That is the goal here.
But I also think it's a really good time in history. We're looking at where we have this administration in office, and this will probably be in one of the first monuments during this administration that's being done. So this is huge in terms of us making our stand and stamp about what we really believe in and the philosophy of W.E.B. Du Bois, and really trying to integrate that in and understanding that even though this is happening on our administration, the larger community is behind what's right, and that's justice and freedom and liberation and equality and community.
We are at the Mason Library in Great Barrington talking about the unveiling of the W.E.B. Du Bois sculpture that'll happen this Saturday out in front of this library. 2 p.m. with folks from Blackshires, as well as folks from the statue committee.
So did you have to arrange with the library to get the steps fixed in order to install the sculpture and make it more open to the public?
We have partnered with the town of Great Barrington. They got the funding from the state for repairing the stairs. When we started this, we came to the library and we said, can we do this? They were thrilled. We went to the town, which has a long history over Du Bois, and they were thrilled. And this has been a partnership. We wake up every day going, oh my God, everybody's on board. It's timing. It's really timing. And I feel a lot of this came out of the Black Lives Movement when they were taking down the Confederate statues, and people were saying, well, who do we want to honor? Who do we care about? And that was the moment we said, well, we know, and we've been holding on to this hope, and now we can do it. Today, could we start today and do it? I don't know. It was a moment in time.
I don't want the narrative to be that this is the first and only acknowledgement of the man in Great Barrington, right? There has been a long tradition of people working to celebrate the legacy of W.E. Du Bois in Great Barrington, from the purchase and dedication of his boyhood home site, which is on Route 23, right outside of downtown Great Barrington. The murals were installed early COVID. The signs notifying you that you're entering the birthplace of W. Du Bois are only about 15 years old. The Legacy Committee for the town of Great Barrington is about 15 years? And they run a program in February celebrating his birthday, oftentimes inviting intellectuals and academics from the international academic community to come and speak. And Ari and I sit on the Legacy Committee for the town of Great Barrington, and so we've had the honor and pleasure of meeting some of these visiting, let's call them VIPs. And it's often jarring to see how moved they are to be in the birthplace of someone they have spent their lives studying and revering, knowing as a resident here that every person that walks past us on the sidewalk is most likely oblivious of that. I will tell the story of actually one of the last hurdles we had to cross to get this project completed was at a annual town meeting where a vote could be called, and a local resident raised a petition saying that this redevelopment of the sculpture project included, going in front of the library, was too much and would be a disruption to the current.
The classic colonial front of a building that wasn't colonial.
Right. They were alleging that this would be a disturbance to downtown Great Barrington, as opposed to what we've been saying and establishing thus far, that it would be a clear upgrade and asset. And so we as a committee came to that meeting, and as a town resident, I was able to speak. We called it to vote as soon as I was done speaking so that the debate would not go on any further. And the town voted 495 to 5 in support of the project.
I was indicating that you dropped the mic essentially at that meeting. It was over.
I will say that my position throughout this process is that this is long overdue. Anyone who gives me resistance to this idea is in a laughable position. This is the most prolific writer in American history. He should have been celebrated long ago anywhere, let alone the town that he was born in and grew up in. This should have happened a long time ago. I'm happy that it's happening on Saturday, and it's just, at this point, Ari and John and I, it's just a relief that we were able to get it accomplished. But I do want to say the little anecdote that walking out of that town meeting, 2 women stopped me, one who moved to Great Barrington after retiring and losing her husband because she wanted to move to the town where W.E.B. Du Bois was from, he being a hero of hers. Standing next to her is her best friend who grew up in Great Barrington and said she did not know who he was until she told her. So this is an opportunity to correct the wrongs that I feel we have done to multiple generations of people growing up in this community who have grown up without the opportunity to be inspired by this great man and potentially walk in his footsteps.
We have to mention Randy Weinstein has been in this community. He has been Mr. W. Du Bois. His books, a lot of the artifacts upstairs are coming from him.
He has a whole collection of Du Bois memorabilia that will be on display in the library, so that once we unveil the statue and give everybody a little Du Bois and berry ice cream.
Which is real, and I didn't come up with it.
And
You could hear Khalees's eye roll.
Hashtag dad jokes.
and they can then tour the library and see this collection of artifacts, signed letters by Du Bois, et cetera. So it's not, there are multiple layers of this. Aren't we thrilled that we can present them all to our little town, really? People know who Du Bois is now. People know that we have struggled with celebrating his history, and this was the time. And when you went to people, they were generous, and Ari and I are still in shock that we were able to raise $500,000. And that, we put a stone bench out there. You saw that bench. That's a marble bench from a quarry in Vermont.
The same quarry, yes, of the Washington Monument?
No. Sheffield was the same. We wanted to use Sheffield marble, and we couldn't. There wasn't enough.
I like my story better.
Yeah. It's time for some new revisionist history.
We picked the marble and, blah, blah, blah. And he says, and now we're going to ship it to Italy. And I said, what do you mean you're going to ship it to Italy? He goes, because they have better carvers. I go, you can't do it here? This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. No, we're shipping it to Italy.
We got plenty of Italians here.
You're talking to one. But anyway.
So are you.
But anyway, come to find out that the quarry in Vermont is owned by this Italian quarry in Italy. So they ship our stones over there. We're pulling our hair out. They start shipping them back, and Trump puts tariffs on incoming. So at one point, we were going to have to pay like 35% tariff. I said, this is the most ridiculous. And actually, we didn't have to pay that much, but it was crazy.
And I think one more partner is Embrace Boston was real instrumental in helping us get the MOTT grant, but also instrumental in kind of consulting us through on how monument building happens.
Yeah.
Speaking to that, what was surprising about the process that you weren't expecting at the beginning? I mean, you're just looking to put up a monument, and all of a sudden, all of these other things come into play. Like, what was unexpected about creating this monument?
Well, imagine doing something that you've never done before. I didn't know anything about sculptures. I didn't know anything. All of a sudden, we had to learn them. So that every day was like a new, we have to do this. Oh, there's that many steps.
We're going to make it the bench out of Sheffield marble, because Sheffield marble from here did go to the Washington Monument. Guess what? There's no Sheffield marble left.
Because it's all in the monument.
We'll take the Washington Monument down and use it again. We'll recycle it.
And then I said, okay, what's close? And then I'm telling you, the bench was more trouble than the monument.
I think that's what's making it more rewarding at the end, is because we know how many fingerprints are on this project, and there's so many people that are going to be able to walk by that sculpture, that monument, and know that they had a part in having it there and what it means. And I think that is what we are overall most interested in, which is this narrative shift. If we do a better job of celebrating that only means that we have more of things to offer as a Berkshire community. In the program, when you come on Saturday, you'll see the legion of partners that are seeing the importance of this, and once it's in, only gives an opportunity for us to continue the collaboration of how to celebrate the Berkshires more.
I've lived in the Berkshires since 1992, and I got to tell you, the changes have been drastic in a good way. I see more people of color here, of all different colors, than I ever have, and genders. We want people to know that it's okay, it's safe to come here through Blackshires and other organizations, that here's what's here for you when you come out here. Come to the Berkshires, look what we have to offer, look at the history, it's safe.
Yeah. Well, let's go upstairs and look at this history. I know it's going to get unveiled for the general public on Saturday, and we're going to hear a little bit about some of those festivities. We're going to do a private unveiling. We're going to look under the hood.
Don't say it like that. That's like an HR visit waiting to happen. Now to head outside to see for ourselves what this new sculpture of historian, sociologist, activist, and academic W.E.B. Du Bois looks like, with some of the folks that helped bring it to life: Ari Zorn, Dubois Thomas, Julie Michaels, and John Lewis.
And hear a little of what's in store for their unveiling event this Saturday, July 19th.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM. I'm always surprised when people don't know about W.E.B. Du Bois because, I learned about him in grade school.
Yeah.
And in Boston. But I realized the weirdness of my circumstances at the same time. I was in Metco, and maybe one of the only good things that Metco does is make sure that the black kids who are being bussed out, all of those kids got Black History classes.
All right, now we're heading outside the Mason Library in Great Barrington.
Past the milkweed. terrible bittersweet.
Ari Zorn, who's part of the planning committee for this unveiling of the W.E.B. Du Bois sculpture at the Mason Library that'll happen this Saturday. What are some of the festivities that'll be part of it?
Well, we got real lucky. Just happened, the BSO's coming to do a little performance to kick this off. That's unexpected.
Yeah, the brass section I hear, right?
Yeah, unbelievable. I was kind of taken away by that.
And they're going to be doing Aaron Copland's fanfare for the Common Man, I hear?
Yes, very exciting. We also have Wanda Houston singing Lift Every Voice.
Nice.
We have Wanda and Gina singing This Little Light of Mine, and then after that, we have Randall Martin's band coming out, and they're going to do a couple Stevie Wonder songs, and the speakers, boy, from Deval Patrick to Lee Davis to David Levin Lewis to Dr. Amari K. Parrish Jeffries. Very exciting.
We knew we wanted the benches. We knew we wanted to create a community space, and then we knew we wanted to put Du Bois on the bench. So here he is.
So if you're looking at the front of the library, W.E.B. Du Bois is going to be sitting on the left side of the benches. Ari, this is your tarp, right?
Yes, this is my tarp. And my rope, and
Keeping it safe from the elements.
And I'm really happy no one's messed with it.
Is that a thing that you're worried about? Like, are you worried about vandalism with this statue?
Sure we are, because, there are crazy people all over.
Yes,
But we have cameras, and we have a community that's going to take care of it. And you know what? It's a bronze statue.
A bronze statue went up of Mumbet in Sheffield in a less traveled through thoroughfare, and she remains standing proudly without any, and it's been there for a couple of years now. The placement of this sculpture being in front of the library, on the main drag, very visible, I feel like this is going to be kind of more of a asset owned and taken care of by the community.
Also, I don't think I realized that when you said you built a bench, that you meant all the way across the front of the library. I think I imagined this maybe seating like a couple of people on either side of.
It's not like that dinky Red Auerbach bench in Quincy Market. This is a huge bench. All right, here we go. Our private unveiling. Look at that. That's amazing.
I haven't seen it before.
This is your first time seeing it?
My first time. Oh my gosh.
What's your reaction having worked so hard on this for so long?
I'm so proud. I'm so proud of all of us, and I'm just thrilled, really thrilled. It's a great moment, and it's a great piece. I mean, it's a piece of art. It's there. It's for us, and I'm loving it.
Wow.
Du Bois, as somebody who was named after Du Bois, who's been part of bringing this statue into existence here at the library. When you look at this, tell me what it means to you.
I'm kind of speechless. You said earlier, it's just it's the culmination of work, of community, and love, and I'm proud to be a part of it.
Ari, when you look at this statue, tell me what it means to you.
Well, once again, this was a gift to everybody, a gift to me. I see it as a gift to humanity, but when I actually look at it and see it here, I cannot believe it. I'm still in a place of disbelief that, we actually, one day we have a meeting about it and now it's here. It's absolutely incredible. And it's actually it looks better than I thought, just seeing diagrams and other photos. I was blown away but once again, I'm going to say what I always say. This is a gift to humanity, because if we don't start working together like we did to put this here, we're in trouble as a nation. And this is what this represents for me.
I know a lot of bronze statues will often have a shiny part of them because that's where people will interact with the sculpture. So we hope and envision a shiny hand that people come up and shake and rub his hand, or
you're holding his hand right now,
and maybe his shoulder if you're coming to sit up next to him or to read a book sitting on the bench next to him. So I'm really curious and excited to see how the community embraces the sculpture.
Put babies in his lap.
I love that. Yep, you could easily do that.
This is a Instagrammable moment for sure.
And what liberation would you like W.E.B. Du Bois to bring you today?
Wow.
This is awesome.
I feel bad that you have to put the tarp back on it already.
I know.
Just for a couple more days.
Just for a couple more days.
Every time I look at it, I say, wow.
You see what we've done here?
Yeah.
We've created a community space. We haven't created a statue. We've created a place to celebrate education, to celebrate learning, to celebrate the man. And that's what's important.
It's worth noting that there are several events happening, not just the unveiling, which happens on the 19th, but actually tomorrow there's a talk with the sculptor who created the piece, Richard Blake, at Chesterwood, and several other events that are happening in conjunction with that unveiling on the 19th at 2 p.m. So check out webduboissculpture.org for all of the things connected with this particular statue getting set up in the community. It's wicked cool. It's a beautiful statue.
Yeah, and you can hear that Aaron Copeland song on Saturday with the BSO Brass section.
In person.
I know. Thanks again to Ari Zorn, Dubois Thomas, Julie Michaels, and John Lewis for giving us an early glimpse on that. On the next Fabulous 413, with the rescission looming, much like a guillotine blade above our budget, we'll hear from NEPM President Matt Abramovitz about what this means for NEPM, NPR, and PBS stations across the country.
And the Wine Thunderdome dons rose-tinted glasses for a Basque-based Thunderdome at Tip Top Wine Shop in East Hampton. Live Music Friday brings Lucia Dostal into the studio before you can catch her swiftly rising star at Bands on Brewstar on July 24th. And you can hear her right now. This is her singing. This is her song.
Yeah.
It's delightful.
It is. I'm Monty Belmonte.
I'm Khalees Smith. We'll see you tomorrow on the Fabulous 413.
I've got everybody's eyes, but I'm waiting.